Hi everyone, welcome to our live. We are waiting to get Dameon on. We're having a dear friend, and also um, um, someone that we featured a few times in Truer Magazine. So we are waiting for him to join. And thank you for joining. Welcome to the live. We're waiting for Dameon and a few others to join. Um, I'll start by, I want to do the intro when he comes on, but I'll just introduce myself. I'm Tristan. I'm the founder, creative director, and executive editor-in-chief of True Magazine. I want to confirm, can you guys hear me? Let me know in the comments. It says Damien is unable to join. Able to hear me. Yes. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you, Mark. Hi, Andres. Welcome. Oh, this light is just not working. Uh, Thank you guys for joining. We're just waiting for Dameon to hop on here. Dameon, invite. I've sent you the invite, Dameon, so you just need to accept it. There you are. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh.
Now,
Hello.
sorry for the couple of minutes late.
No,
I'll tell you what. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah?
Yeah. You sent me an invite through Google Meet. It didn't come up.
Oh,
Yeah.
Google Meet.
Yeah. Seriously, that's what the link was.
What?
Yeah.
That's not me.
I've always
Somebody,
been the team.
somebody's in trouble.
I'm guessing that.
How are you?
I'm all right, darling. How are you doing?
I'm good. How's the eye?
We're getting there. It's 80%. It's 80%.
Was it a lift?
I'm
You
very
look
dare you.
you look
I'm
you
very
look
dare you.
you look younger.
No, it's your eyes that need. That's the wrong one.
For sure. I am legally blind now.
Yeah, you're doing me no favors. Anyway, go ahead.
How are you?
All good, all good. I've just finished the last couple of pieces of work for my
Sorry.
forthcoming one.
Oh geez, I don't know what's happening with my coloring. I've all of a sudden gotten a really big tan. There we go. That's better.
Yeah, I just finished the last couple of pieces of artwork for my London exhibition in a couple of weeks, so we're all good.
Nice. Oh my God, I'm so excited. Such a great idea. I remember when you mentioned it when we were in Belfast for
Yeah,
opening, and I was like, what a great idea. So happy to see it come to fruition.
absolutely, absolutely.
Well, I want to welcome everybody on, and I'm going to do a little intro for Damien so everybody knows who you are if you don't know who he is yet. Um, so welcome everyone to this special edition of True Magazine's IG Live. We're here to explore the heart of creativity, activism, and the power of the arts. Are very important. They help shape a lot of different topics, politics, and global movements. Today, I'm thrilled to have with me a truly inspiring guest, Dameon Priestly, a good friend and an incredible artist. He's not just an artist, but a force in activism and advocacy. bringing his creative energy to the intersection of art, politics, and the Olympic and Paralympic movements. He has dedicated his work to using art as a tool for social change, pushing the boundaries of what creativity can do to raise awareness and inspire action. Dameon, we're excited to have you here today to explore the creative pulse and how art, activism, and sports can come together to make an impact. So, welcome,
Thank you very much for inviting me again. Thank you.
of course. I'll tell them a little bit about how we met and how we kind of connected. Um, One of the writers for Trua, who's based in London, knows Damien, and we were doing our freedom issue, which was right at the height of the pandemic and the George Floyd Black Lives Matter movement. And I think I found one of your pieces of art on social media, and I was like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. It's so great. It's actually very poignant. And I was like, I want to feature this guy. And then I talked to the team about it. And then Michael said, oh, Damien? I know Damien. And I was like, no way. So then he approached you and interviewed you. And then we had our first feature in the Freedom issue.
Yeah.
Um, and then we became fast friends. And I've been a ardent supporter and fan since. And we met in Belfast in person for the first time. When was it? Last October, almost a year ago.
Last November,
November,
actually, yeah.
November. And we had a fantastic event for Damien's opening of his last collection, and it was a really great time. So I don't know if you want to say anything else about that.
Yeah, I mean that Belfast exhibition was my first time showing in my hometown. I kind of avoided telling that story of my life growing up during the Troubles, in case anybody thought I was doing it kind of for sensationalist reasons, and I quite obviously was not. And eventually got around to doing it, and it was a bit of a wrench doing the research and you know going through the memories for sure. But you know when it came together spectacularly, and I exhibited in the Belfast Exposed Gallery, which has been there for 40 years in Belfast, and it was the busiest opening night that they've ever had. The door counter counted over 600 people, believe it or not, and only 400 managed to get into the room. So, yeah, I mean, I was delighted, and the press coverage, including your good selves, was remarkable from it, television and radio as well. So, yeah, it was great, and obviously it was fantastic to have you guys' support coming over as well.
Of course, of course. It was a beautiful exhibit and so powerful. The imagery and the art created for it was there was just such beautiful pieces. I wish we could show while we're talking, but if you guys want to go to damienpriestley.com, you can, or .co.uk,
Yeah.
sorry, yes, damienpriestley.co.uk, you can take a look at his amazing work. And I think from that encounter, Damien, can you tell them a little bit about what happened from the time that we featured you? We had the live in February of 2021, I believe it was, and then you had some amazing collaborations with um, Spike Lee and also um, the Irish folk singer that I love, Brown Eyed
Van
Girl,
Morrison.
Van
Van
Morrison.
Morrison,
Sorry.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, those kind of things came about kind of out of the blue, and but you know I have to say that the support and say the exposure that you guys initially gave me, the first issue that I was in had a few other things about Ireland in there, and it's a network, you know, it's an algorithm, and once you're out there and you know you're in a certain place at the right time, the dots just get joined up. That's for sure, you know. Um, I mean, I sell worldwide, and I've got lots of very loyal collectors, and I've got quite a few fans who, you know, would buy my prints rather than the actual originals, etc. And one chap in particular, a fantastic guy called Jay Glennie, who produces a series of books, very high-end books on classic film. He's done quite a lot of work with Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro and those kind of guys, and he's done fantastic work, Irving Welsh, etc. And yeah, he contacted me out of the blue, January of last year, and said, "Look, I've got this guy might be interested in your Malcolm X piece," and he didn't tell me who it was. And have you anything else? Because he's definitely on the hook for this. And I says, well, the Jesse Owens collection, for instance, he might be interested in.
Hmm.
And it was only once the deal was done that I find out who it was who had actually bought the work, and it was indeed Mr. Spike Lee. I don't tend to make a big deal about that, but it's very, very nice to have on your CV. But I don't actually include it on my CV. It's just one of those things. It's
Yes.
great to have him as a collector and as a fan, but my artwork is one of those things. You either get it or you don't. And I'm glad that he did. Put it that way. Let's just say that. And as I say, Van Morrison, yeah, I mean, I was more than lucky to do three album covers for him on the trot, which is remarkable. And he's the kind of guy. He didn't really take too much interest in a lot of album covers before that. He kind of handed it over to his design team. But certainly when I was on board doing the illustrations, he was all over it. And I got to meet him, and he was incredibly pleasant. And he was great to work with, as was his team. So yeah, those things all came about in the last couple of years, and in no small part to the exposure that either I've generated or the likes of you guys have generated for me.
And we're so I'm such a big fan, not only of you and the work that you do, stories. Can you hear me?
Yeah, your mic just disappeared there, Dominic. Sorry. She's buffering.
Good.
Yeah,
Can you
yeah,
hear
you're
me
back
now?
now?
I think.
Yeah,
Okay, good stuff. I don't know. No, I was saying how much I admire you and your lovely wife. When we met, it was like we had known each other for, I don't know, ever. And you tell the best stories, and you are so talented. And I just love your quirkiness and your off the
I blush. I
cuff.
blush. I blush.
I can't tell. But we had a great time in Belfast, and I've yet to collect one of your pieces. I'm hoping the green one is still available of you as a kid.
It
But
is.
is it? Okay. Mm. We'll talk about that later. Let's get into the questions. If you guys have any questions, please throw them in the comments. Let's talk about the Olympics since they just finished and they were just absolutely spectacular. I actually found myself really jonesing afterwards. Like we were so excited, Michael and I, to watch. That was like our little thing at night after work. We would just watch all the replays, and it was so exciting. And then when it ended, it felt like the world ended. Although over here we're like into the politics and the election and everything, and a lot of exciting things have happened there too. But I thought it was such a fantastic Olympics, and I'd love to hear your take on a few things. So, first question I'll ask is, what's your take on the role of the Olympics in promoting global unity and sportsmanship?
Well, I mean, it's a tricky one to answer because there's really two ways of looking at that, either through the eyes of the competitors and the athletes, um, and the opportunity for those individuals or teams competing, uh, and being so sort of isolated in their own minds, their own bodies, and their own regime for a period of, between the Olympics, 4 years, but maybe in decades in training and preparation and everything else, depending on the discipline that they're involved in. I mean, for those guys to compete against other countries and nations, it must be great. It must be so inspiring, and it must actually sort of, invoke a spirit of unity. But that's from their point of view. As far as the actual Olympics themselves, I mean, the IOC have an unenviable task to sort of to get it together, and they've been around since I think beginning of the 20th century, the IOC, and they've had their own controversies down the years, but they have, like I say, an incredible task because sport at that level, there's money involved, regardless of whether it's professional or amateur or a mixture, which is what the modern Olympics are. With money that amount of money involved, politics will always seep in there, and politics have always been a part of high level sport, high level competition, and the Olympics are certainly no different. So the unity, I think, is more sort of seen between the competitors rather than necessarily the countries themselves who are competing because of the divisions that there may be in the real world, shall we say, outside of the sports stadium.
Yeah.
You can go back, you can back to 1936. Obviously, the Berlin Olympics would be the poster child for that division. But you can jump forward to 1980 and the Moscow Olympics. 66 nations boycotted that Olympics because of Russia's involvement in Afghanistan. And then in 1984 in LA, I think it was probably 16 nations, including Russia, boycotted those for the tit for tat kind of thing,
Hmm.
But at the same time, they were both spectacular Olympics. 1984 was probably my favorite of all time. The opening ceremony, the guy coming in the jetpack, I think his name was Bill Suter. There's a good one for a pub quiz
Wow.
question, right? His name was Bill
Yeah.
Suter. Right? Anyway,
Wow.
and he came in, but I remember that because it was the year of Carl Lewis, 4 gold medals, equaling in actual fact Jesse Owens' record from 1936. I mean, that was phenomenal, and all of those things. But again, kind of mired in as far as how it was reported on. Divisions because of the political differences between countries. But in the stadium, for those people and competitors who were lucky enough to be there, it was another competition and it was a great competition. So the unity can be viewed from two different standpoints, I think, in my opinion anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, the Carl Lewis, I think that was Jesse Owens and Carl Lewis were Michaels as well, because he used to run track in school, and
Yeah.
he loved those two as well, although he was, a young chap, but still. Do you think the Olympics still hold the same level of significance and excitement as it did in the past, or is it more now, do you think?
Oh, I absolutely do. I mean, speaking personally, probably I regard the Olympics. I'm not the biggest sort of sports fan in the world, but I'm drawn towards certain events, especially as a child. It's the blue ribbon events like the 100 meters and that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I'm also more drawn to individual kind of pursuits rather than team sports. I guess it's just the way I'm hardwired. But I mean, they definitely have. And like I say, the Olympics is a generational thing, as far as I'm concerned. Unless you're a real heavy sports fan, everybody remembers the Olympics in the same way as they remember maybe their favorite movie or their favorite music or whatever it was at a certain time. And that's normally around your teenage years. Hence mine being 1984, so I was 17, 18. So your favorite Olympics is kind of, oh, that was the best music, that was the best time. And that's the way I remember it. So looking back, that's probably why that's my highlight because everything else was great, new and exciting to me at the same time.
Yeah.
So that's probably why I embraced that. But as far as this year, the Olympics, the highlight for me was actually was the shooter from Turkey. I want to say,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
forgive me if I to anybody listening that if I get his pronunciation incorrect, but I think it was Yusuf Dekach, right? And he was the shooter who stood with his hand in his pocket and his
Yeah.
normal glasses on and got a
Yeah.
silver medal. I mean, that guy knocked it out of the park. I just thought that was absolutely exceptional. And of course, he created 10,000 memes on social media, because of his casual approach. That to me was remarkable. There's
Awesome.
there's the spirit of the Olympics right there. Go in, do your best, do your thing, do it your way, collect the medal and go home. That was fantastic for me. So I wish
I
I could have been him
loved,
for
right? Like,
yeah.
amazing. And what about breakdancing and the Australian? She created quite a stir as well. Did you catch
Yeah,
that one?
yeah, I did catch it, but I'm reluctant to say anything negative about that, because she's come out now public and sort of said, back off. I mean, I'm not into this sort of mudslinging thing. And as a fan of breakdancing, because I remember when the early hip hop came out, a couple of friends of mine were actually DJing in New York. A chap I know called Noel Watson and his brother. and they sent me over bootleg tapes from New York in 1982, 83 of early hip hop. So I was always a big fan of that thing and the breakdancing thing and the electro. I loved all of that, right? So I was great. I was, great to see it in the Olympics. And, this competitor come out and did her thing. She did her thing. It is
I
what it
thought it
is.
was I thought it was hilarious, and I loved the fact that she did what she did, and that's her. And medal, no medal, it doesn't matter, but everybody knows who she is and everybody's talking about her. And
Absolutely.
she has tons of memes on
Yeah,
social as well. So it just shows the contrast of if you're super competitive and you're, trying to break the record or your last record or whatever it might be. There's excitement in that, but there's also fun in like introducing new things that were not part of it before, and
completely.
then getting something out of it, which I thought was brilliant
Yeah.
too. So kudos to her and leave
Kudos
her
to her. And
alone, people.
exactly. Yeah.
um, the Paralympics, they have 23 disciplines now, and it includes blind football, um, goalball, para archery, paralympics, badminton, all para, obviously, badminton, canoeing, cycling. I mean, the list goes on, but anything specific that you're excited about or you want to touch on regarding the Paralympics?
Well, from my knowledge, which is sadly lacking, I'm afraid to say, and from what I know, from what I can remember, the Paralympics started, I guess, in 1948, just after the Second World War, and it was a small number of competitors who were World War II vets from Britain. I'm not so sure there was anybody else, and I'm happy to be stand corrected, but I think that's the way it started initially, and obviously from then till now, I mean, it's night and day, and it's absolutely remarkable what's been achieved. The only issue that there is, and I guess that they would be the first to tell you, is it's a disparity in funding between the Olympics and that's a huge gulf there, and that needs to be addressed in some way, and it needs to be leveled up. There needs to be a slightly more. There never will be a completely level playing field, but there's absolutely no reason why there shouldn't be. Put it that way, And my huge admiration goes out and respect to all Olympians for sure, and all competitors, but there's a certain thing in me that is reserved for the Paralympics, and that's absolutely set in stone. My knowledge of it, like I say, I'd be lying if I said that I knew it inside and out or anything. But I love archery. I took up archery briefly a few years ago, and I'm a very competitive person, my wife and I only did it for a short period of time, but I just love it. I really took to it. There was something about the symmetry and synergy and sort of being at one with the bow. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing the archery in the Paralympics, as I did in the other Olympics. Let's put it that way. So yeah, archery is a big thing. So I'm looking forward to that.
It's so funny you brought that up because there's a little girl that I follow on social, and I don't know if she's going to be competing in the Paralympics, but she should be. And she does it with her foot and her mouth, because she doesn't have any arms, which is absolutely just so inspiring and significant. So
I've
I
seen
hope
I've
to
seen
see
this
her.
girl. I've seen the girl you're talking about.
Yeah.
Even just the balance of doing that in the chair is a remarkable thing to watch.
Mark says the politics around gender this Olympics plus increased social media had it a different feel to previous ones for him. Um, yeah, the boxer from was it Algeria?
Yeah,
Um, that was a huge, I don't want to say disparity, but I feel like it was very somebody trains in a sport and they want to call themselves Susan or Joe. I don't think um it should be an issue. I don't know how you feel about that, but I just felt like they were two competitors. They trained. just as hard to be a part of it, and they ended up, fighting each other. Very great fight, competitive, and I don't see what, the gender part of it, the gender part had to do with it, and why people were so huffed about it, if you will.
Yeah, well, again, and again, I'm happy to be stand corrected, but the boxer in question, from what I've read, was born female,
Hmm.
and she was allowed to compete as a female. And regardless of whether or not the world championships, they've obviously got their set of rules and decided that she didn't meet the criteria, gender criteria. That's their decision. This is the
Correct.
Olympics. Two different competitions, two different sets of rules. If
Exactly.
they said that she, and I say the word she without trying to cause any offense, met the criteria, then she met the criteria.
Hmm.
And she stepped up, she fought, she won, and that was it. You know, as far as I'm concerned, that's it. If they make the rules and she fits within the rules and regulations, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. It's not up to them. You know, if she met the criteria, she stood out and she won. If the fight was fixed, well, that's a whole different thing. You know, there's a history of questionable results in boxing matches down the years, and some of the best boxers in boxing would be one of my things. And in history were mostly Cuban boxers who won the gold medals on regular occasions and went back to Cuba and refused to go professional or weren't allowed to go professional, one of the
Right.
two. And but there was some questionable results in the past. This, on the other hand, has nothing to do with this. If you win fair and square and you're allowed to step into the ring and compete as a female and you've met the criteria to do that, take the medal.
Exactly. Exactly. I feel exactly the same. Um, I'm going to go through a couple of the comments here on the Paralympics that I may have missed. Um, Scarlett says, I enjoy Paralympics more than the regular competition. And Mark says, me too, Scarlett, maybe due to having a daughter with disabilities. Um, Yeah, I watch them as avidly as I do. I watch both. So I love both. I love competition, and I love to see inspiring people doing inspiring things. So definitely there with you guys. Thank you for sharing that. And with that, I'm going to go into our political climate. Ooh.
You.
I don't know. I know. I don't know what the climate is over yonder where you are, but here it's been absolutely exciting and crazy, and just, 3 weeks feels like 3 years just passed by, the last almost 30 days now, with President Joe Biden deciding to move aside and to pass the torch, as they say, to Vice President Kamala Harris, and who's now our um, uh, Democratic nominee, to become the first the first Black woman, the first South Asian woman, president of the U.S. And if you know much of her story, she has a lot of firsts in many things. She was um, a prosecutor. She was the first Black female senator from California, and first female vice president of the U.S. And I found, she's from the state of California, so I've always followed her in her career. And when Joe Biden chose her as as his VP, I was I was absolutely delighted, because I was like, oh my God, this is so much more than him choosing her as the VP. This is setting up for a lot of change that is overdue in the political world here in the US. So I didn't think that it was going to be so quick that she was going to be running for president, because I thought Joe Biden was going to do another 4 and then she would kind of come after him. But I'm just absolutely excited to see the energy of everybody, and the joy that she's bringing with her running mates and everything else. So it still is very turbulent around the world, with many, many other things happening all over in Africa, and um, all over the world. Very, very turbulent things happening. So, how do you think? Um, recent developments are impacting the world, whether it be Gaza and Israel or the US or other places in Africa that are not talked about as much, especially my native Haiti.
Yeah, it, it is such a volatile.
Sorry, loaded question. Sorry.
No, 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 not at all. It is just it is that thing. Um, there's so much flux at the minute and so much division at the minute. I can only really reflect on it from my own upbringing, and there's one thing that I learned, and that's to try and get as many facts and understand what's going on as you possibly can by not just listening to one vox pop. It has to be, you have to see things in around, you have to step back. You can't just, and I'm not a media conspiracist. I'll be the last person to say that, but I'm a firm believer in going to as many media outlets and many other sources as possible to get the full story, or as close to the full story as you possibly can. And that would be including talking to those people on the ground if possible. That's why
The full
I am.
the full true story, because we have so many outlets that are making things up and telling lies, and then we have the ones that are staying
Oh,
within their journalistic, right?
completely. And world leaders are as perhaps controversial in their truth telling as much as certain media outlets are. It is what it is because there's always an agenda, and or there shouldn't be, but
It's
there's,
true.
it just is what it is. You've got to be very, very careful about jumping to conclusions and making rash decisions and judgments, And like I say, from my own experience growing up, you have to ask who benefits from certain things rather than who's responsible. If you look at something like let's take something famous. Let's take the assassination of JFK, for instance, all right? Everybody focuses on who pulled the trigger. Forget about who pulled the trigger, who benefited from that. And sometimes historical events, one-off events like that, which have massive ripples and massive consequence, you really need to have a look at,
Hmm.
how and why rather than who. And step back, And so, with the amount going on at the minute, without going through the very obvious list, uh, you really need to take a breath, take a step back, and have a really good think about it, before taking a side just because you think that that's the right thing to do.
Exactly. And I think that's why education is so important. As you know, I grew up in Haiti until the age of 15. I was lucky that my dad was the ambassador to Haiti in Washington, D.C. and in Mexico. Um, and, I got to travel the world quite a bit at a very young age. So I got exposed to a lot of different things. And, my dad was in politics in Haiti. So I was exposed to a lot of the back background stuff, if you will, that I don't think a lot of people get access to. But when I moved to the US, I kind of had that um, education and discipline, which really taught me how to look at things and not necessarily um, believe everything you see and watch, and always make sure you have critical thinking and you always do your research before you make a decision. And I think a lot of that is lost in the US, and a lot of people are uneducated on even how the political system works. And Michael, my husband, who you know very well, is also from the north of Ireland and grew up during the Troubles and all of that. And we connect a lot on a lot of the things that he experienced growing up. But politics for me is very different than it is for him, and we have we argue a lot on certain things where he's like, oh no, politics, everybody's the same, and so on and so forth, where I really believe that that is not correct. There is always an agenda, but you have to understand it's like two things. It's like you're trying to get to a destination, and there's a few ways that you can get to that destination. And if you are let's say, a football team or a basketball team, you need to have the right people on your team in order for you um, to get to that destination. So if you're a basketball team, you need an MVP, you need, your defense, your offense, a great coach and a great assistant coach in order for you to get to that championship. Well, I think politics are the same. And some people have certain beliefs that are very, in 2024, to me, need to be rethought of, because we live in a different world now. And some people are more progressive and some people are more in the middle, and so on and so forth. But the way that I grew up is I just want everybody to be loved and happy and to have the same opportunities. And I think that's pretty, it can be very, very simple, but it can also be extremely divisive, the way that it's approached. So, with that said, um, I would consider myself to be more of a, liberal Democrat here in the US, where I want everybody to have the same opportunities and everybody should be educated and everybody should vote. And everybody should know the power of their vote, and they should hold, the people elected accountable when they don't perform the way they're supposed to. But they need to understand that, just like everything else in life, it's about working on specific projects and getting to certain places. So, with that said, are there any specific political or social issues that you feel compelled to address through your art right now?
Well, the running thing is division, and it's just what you were just saying there. It's that disparity between one section and another. It's that constant sort of imbalance is a constant, and it's just I'm not so sure when or if it's ever going to be sort of leveled up. I don't think it's in the powers that be, in inverted commas, vested interest to make sure that everything is on a level platform. It's easier to control a country or a populace if there's a certain amount of inequality. Tony Benn, who's a famous politician over here, he said, "An uneducated, healthy, and confident nation is harder to govern." And you can see that very, very well over here and in the States as well. And it's that thing. So I keep on going back to injustice, social injustice,
Mm,
and inequality. Um, but the things that I focus on are the things that tend to recur, things that have happened in history and keep on doggedly repeating
yep.
themselves. They're all rote, and they just shouldn't. Um, but they are, and it's terrible to say that I don't see an end in sight to that. But again, people will say to me, how do where do you get your ideas from? My ideas never stop because that injustice and inequality never stops, sadly. Um, but I have to keep on addressing it. And it's what we were just saying before about world conflict. There's an interesting thing, maybe not interesting to everyone, but the art market during times of conflict, if it's a recession or a depression, sales in the art market and the art index goes down. And it only goes down, for the short term. So if you're an art investor and there's a massive recession on or depression on and people are losing their jobs and their homes, anybody who can afford, like any other commodity or stock, to sort of invest long term, think long term, and buy cheap and hold on to them, can sell at a massive profit in the art world, which is kind of heinous because luxury art is a luxury. There is things. I like to think that I'm doing something which is worthwhile. I'm not just a decorative artist. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'm not that kind of guy. And so therefore, the kind of things that I'm producing for a reason. But still in all, I still need to make sales and everything else. But the idea that the art market will fluctuate like this and somebody can actually just clean up a lot of artwork, buy a lot of artwork, wait until things turn around again and then flip them, that kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth. The other side of the coin is that if it's a long-term conflict, like a war, in actual fact, the price of the artwork rockets. So in the Vietnam War, for instance, and this isn't the full extent of the Vietnam War, obviously, but between 1966 and 1975, The index on the price of art went up 256% in those 9 years because people actually regard it as a safe thing. But also, those people who are profiteering from the war and the conflict and making a hell of a lot of money out of it, they've got nothing else to spend their money on, so they start to buy art. And it's a terrible thing that art's kind of in there. And with conflict, protest artists. I don't regard myself as a protest artist. I want people to sort of think about things, and if I've enlightened them to something and they want to take up a protest or they want to think about their own protest in a certain different way, I'm happy about that. But protest artists will jump on the bandwagon too, because this conflict's happening, I'll do a piece of artwork on that. This conflict's happening, I'll do a piece of artwork on that. I can't really get on board with that, because that's kind of opportunism and it's sensationalist and kind of cashing in. There's a difference between producing a piece of artwork for a rally and, with a banner and a bit of propaganda on there that's saying, enough of this, we want this to stop. That's fine. But artists who specifically produce something for a crisis, to flip it, to make some money out of it, I can't be doing with that, But again, just my opinion, But that's kind of my thoughts on world conflict, in that huge umbrella, and especially pertaining to the art world. They're strange bedfellows, but they're linked, sadly.
And I actually like that you brought that up because I think we forget that artists are technically creatives and entrepreneurs, which, as you know, that's why I started Trura because I wanted to give a beautiful platform to underrepresented creatives and entrepreneurs around the world that are doing such great work and amazing things, but not getting the recognition for it. So to touch on entrepreneurship as an artist or creative or whatever it might be that you're into, it leads me to actually my next question, which is how do you navigate how do you navigate the entrepreneurship part and your mental health during the times that, you know, maybe people are not buying art during that time, whether it be during a politically charged environment. How do you navigate that sort of balance of mental health and, um, you know, finances during a tough time? Because that's your bread and butter, essentially.
Well, it's a good question and a very tricky one to answer, to be quite frank. Because sorry for moving my telephone there. I was just trying to plug it in case I run out of juice.
No.
Yeah, but no, it's a good question to ask because yeah, I mean, I've been self-employed since 1996, and that's been my artwork has been the sole source of my income. And I used to do quite a lot of commercial artwork for people and commissions and stuff, and I've kind of, reeled that right back in. I don't do so much anymore, and rely more and more and more on my own specific artwork and fine art, and almost exclusively, certainly for the last sort of 15, 20 years. Um, and you know, I guess what I've done is I've got my very, very loyal, and I'm very grateful to them, my loyal collectors from around the world, and they actively support me, and they're very excited to see what I'm going to do next, and they're all very regular buyers, so I can kind of guess what I'm going to earn in a year, and that's enough to keep me going. Here's the thing. See, my mom always said to me, okay, so you decided to be an artist. I didn't really, art picked me, I didn't pick it. And she go, why don't you just paint what people want? You could have a nice car sitting in the drive and a big house, and that's not the way I'm hardwired. It's not why I'm doing what I do. And a
You're
lot
an
of people can't really,
artist.
a lot of people can't really get their head around that. So I would
Mm-hmm.
rather paint something that I completely am 100% committed to and believe in, and try to price it up, uh, read the market, my market, and hope that it goes ahead. But I never ever paint something and go, oh, this is definitely going to sell. I need an extra few quid.
Quid.
I'm going to do this. Forget about it. It's just not going to happen. So the exhibition that I've got coming up in October in London, um, it's self-financed. I don't go through galleries. I pay for the whole lot. Um, but that's okay. That's part and parcel of what it is that I do. And I would rather put it on myself than go through a gallery, because I'm there every day. The customers are buying something without commission, gallery commission included. They get to speak to me if they want to, it's right there, you know. And so at times of recession or whatever or upheaval, I just stay focused and keep on doing what I do. You got to stay true and believe in who you are and what it is you're doing. Once you start to compromise, you lose it, and besides, you lose all credibility as well, you know. So and I'm not prepared to do that after all this length of time, you know.
Right, yeah.
So I've given too much, you know what I
And
mean?
that's
So it is what it is.
and and that's why you're such a great, you know, human being, but also an artist and a creative because you go for what you see, what you feel, and you know why you feel you need to do it at that particular moment. So definitely the that's the right answer.
Did I win? Did I win a prize? What did I get?
You
Did I get a prize for
won
that?
a
Did
prize.
I? Fantastic. Well, good to
You
go.
won a cover on True Magazine.
Hey, look at that. Do you know,
Thank
quick story about that magazine. When I was at home in Belfast for the exhibition, I went along to a hotel which you guys fantastically featured on my recommendation in the magazine, the Grand Central. And I went on a Friday evening with a friend of mine, and they said, you know, you never get in here. You never get to the Sky Lounge. Forget about it. It's always busy. You never get a table up there. They won't let you in. They don't even let residents into that bar. I said, okay. So I went up to the girl in the front of the house and I said, hey, how you doing? We're interested in get up to the Sky Lounge for a couple of cocktails. And she went, are you staying here? No. Have you been here before? Yes. It's busy. Come back in 2 hours. I said, okay. I said, can you do me a favor? I said, can you let your manager know that I was here? And she goes, well, who are you? I said, I'm the guy who got you the inclusion in the True Row magazine. I beg your pardon? So I produced the magazine because, of course, I had it on me. And I showed him the feature that you guys did. And she went, oh, hold on a second. And she went, are you on the cover? And I said, yes, I am. And she went, come this way, sir. So, yeah, you got us a couple of free drinks, which is great. So that's my prize, right?
that was your prize. You see,
That's
you
my
didn't even
prize.
know that. That was all
Yeah,
arranged.
it's great.
But
So
I
thank you.
love that. Oh my God, I love this story. I absolutely love that. Thank you for sharing that. The Grand Central, we didn't get a chance to go there, but we had a good time at the one that used to be the bank.
The
My
merchant.
brain. The Merchant. Oh my God. The best cocktails ever. Um, let, let's see. How do you stay informed? And are there any specific social issues you're passionate about right now?
Um, social issues. No, I mean, like I say, they're kind of the ingredients, the constant ingredients, and as I say, sadly, those are the sort of constants. So I try to pick stories and events and a narrative which includes those social, you know, injustices and stuff and upheavals and how they manifest themselves within various, you know, sectors of the public and countries and this and that. So if there's something happening, you know, in Venezuela, it's as relevant to me as it is if there's something happening in London. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're all human stories, and I regard them as that. You know, because I don't. I don't regard myself, and I'm certainly not in any way prejudicial or bigoted or anything like that, or let God forbid racist. I see people as just people. And if they find themselves in situations which are no fault of their own, then I'm drawn to those stories if something has manifested itself, and especially if it hasn't made the news, then I'm going to try and investigate it and produce a piece of art for it. So rather than looking for something specific, there's always a thread which runs throughout the work, and I'll look around to see, you know, who's on the canvas next. You know, really and truly, that's about it.
Yeah. How do you stay informed?
I constantly read, I constantly research. Again, a lot of these things that I do, being on that historical loop, I constantly read history books. You know, I rarely read for pleasure. I mean, I get so much pleasure from research and from history. That's the thing. But kind of just picking up a book to flick through, I rarely do that. So my life is constantly reading and researching, and that's it. But I never go to one source. So, you know, I don't just click on the news from one media outlet in the morning or go to one newspaper, or I never do that. In actual fact, some years ago,
Didn't
what I would do is I would find a newspaper, a local newspaper somewhere in the Midwest of America, for instance, or some local newspaper in south of
mm,
France. And I would go on, if they had a website, I would go on and see what they're saying, see what they're talking about. Because in there might be a story which is being lost. And it's a local story, but it has massive impact, and I'll do that. And that's how I stay informed. I've got a kind of a magpie's approach when it comes to that, and I've a pretty good eye for finding things as well. Something will jump out to me, and I speed read quite a lot, or I did until my eye operation. But I do
mm.
my best to still speed read, and when I do, there's something about it. Something will jump out to me, and then if I think it's something that needs to be expanded upon, then I'll do the research. And that's how I stay informed. I just constantly look and read and research and listen. Listen all the time.
I remember you telling us when we met in no, it was the second time we met when we met in Belfast. We met in London when we came to London. We had lunch, remember? You, me, and
Yep,
Michael. We
yep,
had the longest lunch ever. But I remember you telling me that every once a week, or maybe it's twice a month, you go into London and you just kind of people watch and do all
yep.
your thing. Do you still do that?
I do every Thursday, regular to clockwork.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
By the way,
remember.
that lunch, I left the restaurant, which was at the top of the King's Road in Chelsea. I
Yes.
walked down the King's Road. I got about 100 yards down, and a guy stopped me and he says, "I'm a photographer. I'm a street photographer. Would you mind if I took your photograph?" And I said, "Absolutely not. No problems at all." And he said, "I'll send you I was making sure he wasn't a scam artist, of course. And he took a photograph. He said, "What do you think?" And I realized when I looked in my eyes that just how much wine we had over lunch, strangely enough. But there we go.
Well, we didn't
Yeah,
just have wine at lunch. We ended up going across, well, not across, but a little bit across to that other great bar, and we had a couple cocktails.
yeah, yeah. So I don't think that photograph ever made it into print, but
I'm gonna
it
have
is.
to research it and do like a bad take, Damien drunk.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, let's see. Okay, let's talk about art. So, um, tell us about the upcoming collection.
Okay, so that's really divided into, I do various collections and series of works throughout the year, research those maybe a year, 18 months in advance. And in actual fact, some of this work, which is going to be on show, will be on show for the first time. I actually did that before my Belfast exhibition. Um, and the reason why I did that in actual fact was so that I had enough work to show this year in case anything went wrong with my surgery. Thankfully and mercifully, it didn't. So, but the artwork that I've produced is five different collections. One is a look at Dylan Thomas, the poet, not through the magnifying glass of popular opinion, but really who the man was. So I researched his letters and his diaries and first-hand, accounts rather than what you would read in the newspaper or popular press, and tried to investigate that in four different pieces. So that's Dylan Thomas, him from his diary extracts and his closest friends. There's another collection on forgotten or overlooked women artists and designers from the 20th century, which was a fascinating thing to investigate. Just fantastic. And I do a lot of work and a lot of collections from about women and from a female perspective, and I really enjoy doing that. They're mostly the stories that are untold or glossed over. So there's that. There's also a collection on controversially artists I don't like.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I said that to someone, they said you can't say that, and I said, well, I kind of can because it's my opinion. So rather than calling it artists I don't like, there's an expression. It's probably an Irish expression. I don't know, but I changed the name of the collection to "I don't fancy you as much." Okay, so that's what
Yeah.
it's called, and it looks at four artists. I'm not going to name them here, but I included them because it's either their personality that I don't particularly like, or their artwork, or a combination of both. So I picked four artists for that. Lucky them. Um, and two of them have passed away. Two of them are still with us. But they're done in a very, very respectful and reverent way, so that's all fine. I don't expect any lawyers' letters, so that's fine. Um, Another collection. Let me see. What's the other collection going on there? Yeah, Harlem. I did a series on Harlem in the 1960s. Um, the massive Harlem Renaissance during the 1930s and 40s, its decline sort of post-war, and then its sort of troubles of the 1960s. But I looked at that, and I was looking at it in actual fact from a slightly different angle because some of the things that I researched, like the brown paper bag test, where they would hold the brown paper bag up to test your, your cast, your color before you're admitted into certain nightclubs. I I erroneously thought that that was in actual fact instigated by the white populace. It wasn't. It was actually brought on board by the coloured populace, by the African Americans themselves. Now it was to appease the white customers, but still in all, when I read about that, I thought, wow, this is something that really needs to be looked at and investigated again. And so there was that collection as well. So yeah, I mean that's what I've done. It's a good cross section of work. I'm very proud of it, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. There's no guarantees, but I stand over everything that I've done. Put it that way, as I always do.
When is the it's in October, right?
It's in October, yeah, in a gallery in Marylebone. I've shown there a few times before, so yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
It sounds amazing. We'll see if we can make it. But
Oh, let me just name check the gallery if you don't mind. It's
yes, please.
67 York Street Gallery. Those guys have been very supportive of me for about 5 or 6 years. They're a great team and it's a great space, and they always look after me very well.
And I also want to mention Damien was our cover feature for our art issue last year. And he's, of course, going to be featured in this year's art issue that will also be published in October. And we had three covers. I can only find two right now, but the
I hope that
great.
I hope that didn't result in a slump in your sales with my face on the cover. Just you know, I can only apologize.
Not at all.
Okay.
But I wanted to thank Morgan, who is one of our photographers here at Trura. He's based in Nigeria, and the stars were aligned, and he happened to be in the UK in September, right before the issue was published, and he did a great shoot with Damien and produced some pretty awesome pictures. So thank you, Morgan. We cannot wait to
Yeah.
continue to work with him.
Mhm.
And Andres, who's our creative art director, is also on here, and he absolutely loves you and your work, and he created your feature. So the design and the composition and everything else. So I have the signed copy here that I still have to send to Mr. Andres, but just wanted to thank them for all their work and contributions to Trura. There's something that I want to talk about here that maybe doesn't make the news here in the US, but Michael and I were talking about it, and I was like, I'm going to ask Damien when we have our live. Knife possession in the UK is quite significant.
Yep.
Uh, can you tell us anything you know about that and educate our audience on what what your personal thoughts are, what you think potential solutions are. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, you know, the knife crime thing is knife crime anywhere is crime. It's a crime and it's a problem. There's no question about that. But the thing about the knife crime thing is it's a buzz story, and it stories like this tend to come up when there's election processes happening or there's lack of confidence in governments and things like that. So certain things, I'm not saying it's not a story because it absolutely is, and is it a concern? It's a huge concern, and any crime, certainly any death that comes as a result of this is beyond a tragedy and needs to be addressed and needs to be fixed. And it's a very, very complex background. Is it purely social? Is it poverty? Is it this? Is it education? Is it that? Or is it just gang warfare for no reason other than just hatred and division, etc., etc., etc. So that's one thing. But the actual story of knife crime is something that I think not only was sort of pushed to the forefront here at a time just before a general election. I know it's been going on for a long time, but it tends to rise to the surface when there's some sort of an issue where you're looking to try and politically motivate one side or the other to vote one way or the other. That's just my opinion, and I'll tell you why. Because statistically, it's made the news in the U.S. Okay, knife crime, no-go areas, blah blah blah. No-go areas. That's kind of a fallacy. But the knife crime thing, you'll see it in the UK, you'll see it on the European press, you'll see it in the American press. But the thing about it is it's like measuring anything else. Knife crime as a statistic may be higher here than other places. However, you have to use the same measuring, you have to use the same yardstick. Okay, so what constitutes knife crime here may be different other places. Okay, so knife crime as a statistic in the UK can be down to just the possession of a bladed weapon over a certain length. That's a crime. That'll go into the statistics. That may not be a crime in Europe or Eastern Europe, or certainly not America. Okay, if you can carry an AR-15, I dare say they'll turn a blind eye to you carrying a hunting knife. Okay, and so therefore that's not regarded as a statistic on the crime. So if you measure the crime on a level playing field, that everybody's statistics are the same, then in actual fact, what you should be looking at, rather than the number of crimes catalogued or offences catalogued, is actually the number of deaths. So the statistics in this year, and it's just research I've done for other things and for other reasons, but in January of this year, the statistics of deaths caused by knife crime in the UK, as opposed to the US, for instance, you're 7.5 times more likely to die of a knife attack in the US than you are in the UK. But I dare
Really?
say
Okay.
knife crime is not a buzz thing in the US because, it's just not. There's other things. There's other things to be talked about. And that's not really going to sway a vote either way. Knife crime in the US, gun crime is,
Mm-hmm.
but knife crime won't. So what I'm saying is, although it's an issue and a very, very serious one, an incredibly serious one, and a topic which needs to not be dropped out of the news, you can't compare the statistics unless the statistics are based on the same criteria of offence and crime, and they're not. So there we go. 7.5 times more likely to be the victim of a stabbing in America than you are in the UK, and that's kind of the facts, really.
Wow. I'm so glad I asked because, like you said, it really depends on where you're reading the story, how it's presented, and to get your opinion on it was extremely valuable. So thank you for sharing that. And I
Mm.
think Scarlett said you're spot on. Your opinion is spot on. I want to say hi to my mom because she actually joined the live. And hi, mom.
Hello, Scott. Hello, 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 Tristan's mom.
Um, so let's see. You are being featured in our upcoming art issue. Are there any other things that you're most looking forward to sharing besides what you already said with our audience for that specific? I know you interviewed, I think it was yesterday, with Leon, one of our contributing writers based in Colombia.
I
Um,
did.
is- Tell us a little bit about that and if there's anything specific you're looking forward to sharing. Like, do you want to give a hook so people are like, oh my God, I can't wait to read the feature?
Leon was a fascinating guy. Obviously, never met him before, and I thought that he was based with you guys in San Francisco. I had no idea that he was. I know that he told me he lived in the States for a while, and now he's back down in Medellin in Colombia, which is fascinating. We hit it off fairly quickly. And I think he was drawn to the artwork that I do, talking about art from conflict and art from social injustice. Obviously, growing up where he grew up, and I said, if I say Belfast, people go to Troubles,
Yeah.
uh, which is fine, but it's not really. And I said to him, "You say you grew up in Medellin," and they go Pablo Escobar, all right? And he
Yeah.
goes, "Yeah, it's fine, but it's absolutely not, you know."
Yeah.
And you're forever sort of, associated with the byproduct of the society that you live in, the unfortunate side of it, and
Yeah.
that occasionally can, although be realistic, it's harsh. So him and I got along very well, and we seen eye to eye on a lot of things, and he really understood why I did the artwork, and I'm doing the artwork that I do. That's for sure. Um, so I look forward to actually see what he comes up with, what he writes from our 40-minute chat. That's for sure. And as far as the inclusion in your magazine, from the first time that you guys included me, and even the massive coverage for the Belfast exhibition, which was outstanding, I think that now that I've got a more sort of deep relationship with you and the team, and I've been able to express myself in more detail, then I think it's going to be worth a read because it's more concentrated, it's more focused. It's not a broad brushstroke of, I was born in 1966 in Belfast, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's honing it right down to it's the bones. So it's the meat on the bones rather than everything else. So I think if you're interested in art and politics, you should pick it up and give it a read.
Amazing. Um, Leon's actually on here. Hi, Leon. He says it was a pleasure talking to you yesterday, Damien. Already working on that article. So I can't wait to see him write it. And this is probably hopefully going to help to bring in some other aspects to it. But thank you, Leon. I know I can't wait to read it either. And let's see, what else do we have? Is there anything else you wanted to touch on that I may have missed, Damien? Oh, yeah, I have one more question.
Go ahead.
Are there any books or movies or experiences that you have recently gone through that have influenced your worldview or outlook on life differently than it perhaps would have before? Another loaded question. Sorry.
Well, I would watch more documentaries than actual
Films?
movies, just plain movies. So I'm a bundle of laughs, you know what I mean? It's just all about the documentaries and the research for me.
Love
So
documentaries.
I find myself constantly reinforcing my realistic but very depressing outlook of the world in general. I never lose faith in humanity, but I certainly get jaded about the decision makers rather than the victims of those decisions. That's for sure. So as far as movies or books that have changed my world opinion or anything, not really. To be quite frank, I constantly read about things to maybe get a different slant on something that I thought I knew, which I didn't really. So, for instance, the meeting, I'm reading a book on uh, on the women who Egon Schiele painted, from their perspective, and because I'm a human story guy, and because it's about the narrative, it's great to read something from firsthand. Those small changes, those subtle changes in your understanding of something can have a massive effect on how you see the whole. So, for instance, I've done so much research on Vienna at the turn of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century. I've done so much research on that, about the Habsburgs, etc., etc., etc. But once you read a small, just a little sort of microcosmic sort of thing, or a minutiae, then it changes your aspect and your whole overview of lots of things. And that's the way I think that you see differences in changes, in countries and globally. When you look at it from one person's story, can actually make a huge difference to how you see the whole thing. If it's a story of impact. So I prefer to go right down into that rather than just reread the history of somewhere or pick up on the latest tome on what's happening in the Middle East or whatever. It's individual stories which make the change and make the difference, as far as I'm concerned. And it's up to me to find those stories, find those individuals, and hopefully turn it into pieces of art that people will get.
Will inspire you? That was the next question, is looking back at the past issues we featured you in. You definitely have your own unique style, which is extremely the contrast that you pose, especially with the last collection, I feel is so powerful. Do you think you'll ever change your style or implement different things? Um, has anything changed from the last feature to this one that's coming up with this new collection, or um, do you think it'll always be that unique style?
My style's kind of set in stone for sure. That mixed media approach and lots of typography and mixes of first-hand accounts and quotes, photographs, drawings, and things. But it's not by accident. It's certainly not random. It's certainly not hodgepodge. It's very 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 carefully and methodically planned, to make sure it's as appropriate as possible. And appropriate by that I mean as effective as possible as conveying that particular narrative, and that particular story. So, but that mixed media approach is my vehicle. And I have kind of an occasional signature where I will put a solid line down a painting, and that line is representative of all sorts of things. But it has become a bit of a sort of a second-hand signature in some of my work, and I was very pleased to see that it was adopted recently by one of my artists who made it into the Artists I Don't Like collection. He actually put it into one of his paintings recently, so I thought, well, at least he's paying attention. So there we go.
I love it. Oh my God, I cannot wait to find out who they are. I cannot wait. Um, so tell us, to wrap things up, just tell us again about the gallery opening and the collection, how long it's going to run, and how people can find you, and any other information that you want to share with the audience.
Okay, so the exhibition is in London's Marylebone in 67 York Street Gallery. It opens up on Monday, the 21st of October. It's open from 10 until 6 daily. The private view is actually on the Tuesday, the 22nd. It's by invite only, but please do reach out to me, and we can see what we can do. We're pretty oversubscribed at the minute, but we always will make room. And it runs until Saturday the 26th, until lunchtime on Saturday the 26th. So it's open for 5 full days and 1.5 day. And yeah, come on down and have a look at it. The exhibition is called "What Do You See When You Look at Me?" And yeah, that's where we are. My website is dameon.co.uk, and my email is dameonpriestley@gmail.com. Instagram, you'll find me Instagram anyway from this fantastic chat with you, Tristan. So always a pleasure.
Of course, of course. For us, um, we're trying to really promote Trura to continue to include underrepresented creatives and entrepreneurs. So we want everybody on here to go to trura.com and go to magazine at the top and go to print and join the wait list. It's free to join, but we have to reach 500 subscribers before we can launch the beautiful print issues so that people can receive them at their doorsteps. Remember, our print issues are 100% recycled paper, biodegradable laminates, 100%, and also vegetable ink. For every print copy and print subscription we sell, we also plant a tree. Right now, our focus is in Ghana, Thailand, and the Philippines. In the Philippines, in addition to planting a tree when you purchase an annual print subscription, we remove a kilogram of plastics in the ocean. And we are in the process of partnering with Charity Water. And part of our proceeds will also go to giving access to clean water to all human beings on the planet, which is Charity Water's goal. So we ask you to continue to support us so that we can continue to support amazing, um, inspiring individuals such as Dameon and many others out there. Look for the upcoming issue in October. We actually have our late summer issue coming out early next week. So look out for that. There are some pretty beautiful, amazing stories. It's the global influence um, of African culture around the world, global, clearly. And we hope you guys continue to support us and support Damien and keep coming on here and discovering new underrepresented creatives and entrepreneurs.
Wonderful.
Let me see if anybody had any other questions before we go. Oh, good question. Mark says, would anyone, past or present, who you have painted be the ultimate to share a glass or two with?
Well, now, yeah, probably Walter Sickert. He would be one of my top five painters. I don't, I'm not really drawn to artists, strangely enough. I like scientists better than artists and mathematicians. But out of the artists that I do like, I would say, although Egon Schiele is my favorite artist, I think if I was going to have a drink, it would need to be Walter Sickert, and it would be in a little restaurant in London's Fitzrovia called the Eiffel Tower, La Tour Eiffel
Hmm.
restaurant around the turn of the last century. That's where I would go, and I would go to the upstairs room and be served the best French food outside of the Café Royal in those days. And that's who I would drink with. That's who I would eat with. And yeah, what could possibly go wrong? Me and Walter Sickert in the same room at the same time. What a catastrophe! But there we go. Who
Thank you
wants the
for that
boring?
answer.
Tristan, who wants a boring lunch? That's why I met you, right?
Exactly. Never boring. Ever, ever, ever. Um, Christina, who wrote your article, your previous feature, says thanks again for doing the interview with her last year as well. Um, and I think, ladies and gents and fabulous humans, that is a wrap. Um, I want to thank you, Damien, for this incredible conversation, for taking the time to do it.
No, thank you.
And
Thank you, honestly.
you know, we'll as long as we're here, we'll always have this connection, and you'll always have this platform. So can't wait to see the upcoming collection and then discover on the next one. I want to talk to you about the female fashion designers. You already did that, or you're planning on doing that?
Oh, the female artists and designers, not
Female,
fashion designers, just artists and
female.
designers. Yeah, it's already complete. Yeah, so that work's actually up on my website as we speak. So yeah,
Okay. I'll
yeah,
reach out and talk about that. And with that, everyone, thank you so much for joining. We are so grateful for your time today. Be safe, be well, be healthy, and have a fabulous rest of your day wherever you might be in the world. Thank you, Damien, and give my love to Lee.
good darling. Thank you.
All right. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye bye. I have to learn how to turn this